Hello there and welcome to Full Chat with me, David Prutton.
And me, Ewan Thomas, celebrating all things we love about being on two wheels. Now, Full Chat is powered by bikesure. As the UK's largest independent motorcycle insurance broker, bikesure will tailor a quote to your exact needs, saving you money on your annual bike, scooter and moped insurance.
Don't forget to press subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss an episode, or you can press the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from.
Now, today's guest, as you'd expect, is an absolute belter. She's a petrol head through and through. She's done loads of TV work on bikes, including the TT's coverage on ITV every year, Fifth Gear, Recharge, and loads more. And we better be careful, Prats, because she's actually a qualified teacher. She's going to keep us in check today. It is, of course, the brilliant Grace Webb.
Hi guys, that was a nice introduction. I don't think I'm a nasty teacher though. I'm one of the good ones.
No, you don't get many nasty teachers. I think you remember the good teachers. And
Yeah.
what was your subject? What did you teach?
Well, so I taught primary age, so I would teach all subjects.
This is definitely in your wheelhouse then, Grace, talking to me and you, and you've nailed that.
But my favourite subject would be PE. I led the subject for physical education. So, yeah, I really loved getting outside, play sports, games. You know, you could really see that that's where the children developed team skills. And that, I just loved that. There was not much sitting around in PE. So that was my favourite subject.
Well, it's wonderful to properly meet you here, Grace. But of course, we met you very, very quickly. Well, I say, mate, you were about to go on stage at Motorcycle Live at the NEC back in November. Ewan and I and our lovely production team, we'd finished doing our bits and bobs. So we were kind of scot-free and just kind of freewheeling and messing around. You were literally about to go on stage. Excuse me, Grace. Do you want to come on our podcast? Yep, cheers, lads. I've got to go and do this in about 10 seconds. But you were obviously ever the professional. And just a little other story off the back of that. Cut to about 5 or 10 minutes later when Ewan had disappeared off into another hall, saw him running through the concourse with his free air fryer, which he'd managed to swindle from somebody somewhere. So hang around with this fella, the freebies come flying.
They do come flying, but I deserve that day because if you remember, our producer Dave very kindly, when me and Prutch, you might not be aware of this, we were on another stage talking, and unbeknown to me, Dave had gone up to the organisers and said, "Oh yeah, you and Thomas, if you want, do something crazy with him." And they got some trails rider to literally put me on the floor, bunny hop all over me. And I think I'm allowed to say this. The guy's name was Bullock, and he literally back wheel was touching my bullocks on more than one occasion. It was the most frightening experience ever. So although it was great speaking to you that day very briefly, I could not wait to get out of there with my air fryer under my arm. It was scary.
Yeah. Well, I saw actually in the live event arena a lot of that going on, and I think I saw you post on social media that video of you doing that, and it looked quite dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he was very skillful. He knew what he was doing, but I had to put my full trust in him, and scary.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get asked to do that, but neither did I get a free air fryer. Where did you get that from at Motorcycle Live?
I'm telling you, Grace, ridiculous.
It's how I roll, Grace. If I don't leave a venue with a freebie under my arm, I'm not happy. But no, my mate happened to be in the hall next door doing the Good Food Live, and he said, "I'll see you at the NEC. Why don't you swing by?" And I just cheekily said, "I haven't really got time, although I do need an air fryer." And he said, "If you come and say hello, I'll get you an air fryer." And he did. And also, Prutz, don't hate me, since then, I've had a load of pots and pans, kitchen knives, all sorts.
God.
They've arrived in the post. Yeah, sorry, mate.
Never shares the wealth, Grace. Never shares the wealth. Right, Grace, let's get back to you. Enough of you and Thomas's freebies. I'm sick to the back teeth of all that. Obviously, bikes is that huge passion of yours, and seeing you, obviously, at the Motorcycle Live was an absolute pleasure. And when it comes to telly, where does the big break come from for you?
Well, thank you for coming to poke your head in at Motorcycle Live. I'm sorry it was so hectic. I didn't have a chance to go off and get free air fryer, which I'll make note of that for next year. But I suppose, my big break kind of came, I suppose a lot of people know me, first of all, from presenting a children's show on the BBC. And I guess when something's backed by the BBC, it gets a lot of promotion and advertisement. So I presented a children's show called Grace's Amazing Machines, which ran for 4 series, but is on iPlayer, so you can watch it anytime. And I absolutely love filming that show. we get to travel around a lot. We meet some incredible people who own and maintain these machines, and we do all sorts, from flying in the sky to water machines to going on racetracks. And it really suited what I wanted to do, because when that opportunity came about, I was teaching full time, but my interest and my hobby was in motorsport anyway. So it kind of came about where my brothers raced motorbikes for a championship called Thundersport, which unfortunately no longer runs at the moment, but was a great platform for young riders and people who just wanted to scratch their racing itch. And I would go along as top sister and support them and do what I can, whether that be holding their pit boards or changing their wheels. I'd get involved wherever I could. And Thundersport actually asked if I wanted to do a bit of a stint interviewing some of the riders, because at that time they wanted to showcase some of the races online and on Freeview. And for the type of riders that were racing in that championship, that was great for them because it looked really professional for them to be interviewed by someone, and it looked good for their sponsors and to try and get more sponsors on board. So I did a bit of that, and one of the riders had posted a video of me interviewing them on their Facebook, and that was the clip that was seen by the producer at the BBC, and said, "We're looking for a presenter for a children's show that's about motorsport. We've come across this video of you. Would you like to try out for it?" So at the time, I was a bit like, ha, this would be a good story to tell down the pub. But I went for the interview as such, which was in a disused car park in Manchester, where they'd hired a car from Enterprise, and I had to pretend that it was a real rally car. So they sent me a bit of a script with some pointers, and I had to pretend that this was a rally car. And still at this point, I was like, wait till I tell my mates about this. But then a few days later, they rang back and said that they'd like to give me the job. And then pretty much about 2 weeks after that, I left my full-time teaching job and went to present Grace's Amazing Machines, which it was such a yeah, it was such a surreal time.
It's a lucky break in life, and I've got to say, I'm not just saying this. I've watched that series with my kids, and one that stands out. You were riding an electric bike, and first of all, I thought, oh, I wonder what electric bike is like. But then I thought, hang on, this girl can actually present, and she can properly ride a bike. I mean, and straight away, I had massive respect for you, because I didn't realise that was your first job in television. I assumed, oh, why have I not seen this girl before? You're really good. So like, you must be then thinking, pinch me moment. You're living the dream, and what did your brothers think of that? Your two brothers who race bikes, all of a sudden you came along, by supporting them, in essence, got spotted and working in TV. What do they think of it all?
Yeah, I'm so lucky and so grateful that I have a really supportive family. I'd spent years, traipsing the country, watching them, supporting them, and likewise, they'd always support me as a teacher, because that in itself had its own challenges. And in my last year of full-time teaching, I was promoted to be an assistant head teacher. So again, that came with its own challenges that I needed support with. But they've always been by my side. And whilst they were racing, I never raced, I never competed, but I was sort of the road rider of the family. So I got my road license before them, and I would do the odd track day and get pointers from them. So I'm just a bike enthusiast. I'm just a girl with a license, and have managed to portray, hopefully, my enthusiasm and passion for two wheels, because I'm not anything special. I just love bikes just as much as other people. And it's then snowballed from there. Like, Amazing Machines was brilliant, and it also very much showcases me as a biker, and that bikes are my favourite type of machines. And it's just snowballed from there, really, onto documenting electric things, working with manufacturers like Honda and Triumph and Yamaha to support their campaigns. And then ultimately now, possibly my most high profile job is working at the Isle of Man on the TT races, which is, yeah, that's a pinch me moment, because that's a pinnacle event of motorsport, and to be just a small cog in the production of that is amazing.
You can tell, Grace, everything that you've spoken about so far, you've been glowing when you say it. That line of "I'm just a girl with a license," that's a line in a movie somewhere. That's got to fit in, and that is at the start of a speech somewhere. That I can just picture it now. But you mentioned the minute you mentioned the TT, though, kind of like you go an extra level. You can see in your face that's the mecca really for you. And you say about the pinnacle, the ultimate. I mean, that going back to Ewan's question about living your dream, it's pinch me territory, isn't it? When you're on the island and you're doing what you do.
Yeah, because I mean, again, as a bike enthusiast, I'd watch British Superbikes or MotoGP or the TT. You know, it's almost a bit of a family gathering when MotoGP's on. It's like, right, the Argentina rounds on this weekend. Is everyone coming over for food and drinks, and we'll have that on in the background? Like it's a date in the diary for our family. It also gets a bit competitive. We have a fantasy league as well, so there's money involved. We're quite a competitive family. But anyway, that's with MotoGP. Obviously, the TT only runs for 2 weeks a year, so that's sort of, it's on in the background, and you're trying to keep up. But now, working on the event for 2 years now, this year will be my 3rd year working on the event. I watch everything a lot more closely and analyze lots of things and keep up to date with riders and teams and news throughout the year. So I've always been a fan and I've watched it, but the only time I've been is through work. So when that opportunity came about to go to the island for the first time was because I was working on the event. And that, it just, things you've seen on the TV for me then came to life experiencing it firsthand. So, I mean, you think the bikes look fast on a screen. When you're a few meters away from them, sat in a hedge, it's just electrifying, and you can't help but pull back from just human instinct. But to experience it firsthand is that there is a magic in the air, a tension in the air. It's you can't package it until you go and see it for yourself. And I think now that the live coverage is being broadcast for people to access at a really cheap cost, I think has heightened the event and allowed it to be accessed by more people to really see the magic of the TT.
You say the word magic. Honestly, Prutz alluded to it and said you're glowing when you talk about bikes. It's magical to hear you speak. It's in your blood, clearly, because the whole family love it. Did you ever imagine, though, when you were a school teacher, did you ever, like, kids daydream out the window and think, oh, I can't wait for break time to play football? Did you ever think, I would love to work in TV and with motorbikes, and as you said, at the TT, at the pinnacle, the job that everyone would love to have, and you're doing that. And I'm not disrespecting teachers at all. It's what my partner does. It's what my mother was a teacher. It's a great profession, but you are literally living the dream. You're doing something that I believe, it sounds to me, was destiny. You had to work with motorbikes.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, no, it was never a daydream thing to be a presenter or moving into journalism now. I actually took inspiration from my older sister. She worked with children. She worked in a nursery, and I could see the impact that she had on children. And I sort of looked to her as my role model. So that was sort of why I went into teaching and working with children, because I wanted to have an impact on children and to inspire them and to be, like you said right at the beginning of the podcast, you remember the nice teachers, you remember even from when you were 7, 8 years old, you sort of remember your teacher and have flashbacks of memories of activities that you did. And I was like, I'd love to have that that memory that someone's like, oh, I remember Miss Webb.
Please tell me, Miss Webb, you went to work on your motorbike. Please tell me. You would have been the coolest teacher. Did you turn up on a bike every day?
Are you joking? No, I'm representing the teachers here. Like, you are quite often carrying 90 exercise books and pencil cases and all sorts of weird paraphernalia from whatever lesson you were teaching. There was no way I could take on a bike.
Take this the right way, please. But if you had been my teacher at school and you turned up, took the helmet off and the long flowing hair and with your satchel under your arm, I would have thought you were the absolute don. You would have been the coolest teacher ever. Sorry, Prutz, but it would have been.
Well, in hindsight, it's I'm very much a sports bike lover. So now I've been sort of exposed to the world of panniers and practicality, that actually maybe there would be a more suitable bike for a teacher. But no, it was never, the dream was to work with children. But I was a biker. Like I say, I had a license, and that was just my weekend hobby. Sort of go for a ride, and then Monday morning came and you'd go and do your job. But when Amazing Machines came about and it married those two passions of mine, it then was a springboard for other things. So and I've just rolled with it now. But it's I never really realised until sort of moving later in my career into this line of work how much manufacturers think that working with children and inspiring younger riders to come into the industry is of high importance. So I've worked on a lot of campaigns with manufacturers where they're trying to encourage and inspire younger people to get on 2 wheels or 4 wheels, and they really see highly in that. So I love that I'm in that space that I can help a manufacturer try to encourage the younger generation to get into it.
You mentioned that evolution of bike ownership, and practicality is such a great word, because you do start off with visions of what it could be, and then you soon realise that no, I need that. That's not comfortable. Have I got my wet gear? Have I got that? Have I got that? And then you suddenly think, I'm never going to be a panniers person. You go, oh, look how much I can get my panniers. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I was there. And I don't know if that's kind of, growing up watching MotoGP, it was like a sports bike is the motorbike to have. And like, anything other than that is just so uncool. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I've come to very much love a pannier, because I'm like, this is great. I don't need to take a bag, and I can ride for longer because it's more comfortable. And I almost like hate saying the words, but yeah, I've now come to realize that there's a bike for everything. I think the answer is you need a garage rather than a one does all. And yeah, for that, I need to keep earning the money.
I was chatting to a mate of mine just the other day about potential bike trips, and he's got a GS now, and I've got a Triumph Bobber, which and he's waxing lyrical. I've had a GS in the past, loved it because you can go anywhere on it. You can get as much crap on the back as you need to. It's fine, you're balanced. You don't have to fill up every 3 hours because you can just go hundreds of miles on it. And he was waxing lyrical about it. I said, yeah, I know, I've been there, but I said, I'm still a wannabe hipster Wally that lives up in North Yorkshire on this thing. Big ape hangers covered in muck, as like you're going past something on the M62 thinking, doesn't feel quite as cool now. I'm totally wet through and freezing. But at some stage you do get there. Grace, just tell us about that. There's an evolution there with regards to bike ownership. But your bike test, can you remember it? Was it straight out the gate, first time, all that type of stuff, a roaring success?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I'm pretty chuffed to say I got 3 minors, I think, but passed first time. But saying that, I mean, like on my lessons, I can't remember exactly what bike it was that I learnt on, but I remember it had a centre stand, which I hated. I couldn't.
There for all people.
Yeah, I mean, I was 16, 17, and I just couldn't get the knack of this centre stand, and I was getting more and more annoyed and frustrated, and Luckily we were in a car park where, you know, you do your emergency stop and your other maneuvers, and I was trying to put it on the side stand and I was getting annoyed anyway. I think I just hoofed it a bit too much and it fell over, which then just added more to my frustration. um, but I didn't give up. I just said, I'm never buying a bike with a centre stand. So that was that. But luckily, the actual test went well, and yeah, I did pass first time. So, but I mean, to, I think one of the reasons as well for me getting my bike license and getting out on the road, not only was it a family influence, but I grew up in Lincolnshire where it's so rural. The nearest bus stop from my parents' house where I grew up was like 2 miles away.
At least
So
it's flat though, Grace.
it is flat, yeah, but you can still push a bike over on a centre stand when it's flat. But I really wanted my own independence and mode of transport, because if ever I wanted to see my mates or go out, you're asking for a lift and you're relying on other people to scoot you about. So I was like, right, you know, in England you can take your CBT at 16, so that's what I'll do, and that means I can get my own set of wheels and get about by myself. So, and it just, so I, you know, got my CBT and was on two wheels before I got my car license, and it just rolled from there really.
How did that feel? Can you remember that? Can you remember passing the test in terms of? I remember when I passed, it was just like you said. It was a sense of independence, that freedom, that all of a sudden I'm not going to have to ask my parents for a lift somewhere. I'm not going to have to get a bus. You know, I'm going to actually have a motorbike, put petrol in it, and go where I want to go. I mean, what is it that makes biking so special for you? And how did you feel that day when they said, "Congratulations, you passed your test"?
Yeah, yeah. I loved it because I think you have that feeling. I remember pulling out on my scooter and almost feeling a bit naughty, like, have they actually just said that I can do this? Like this is legal, isn't it? Like, or like, or a car would give way to you, and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, like this is great." They're actually respecting me
A
as a road
rarity, to be
user.
fair.
This is great. But I mean, now you don't think twice about that kind of thing. But for me, it's the freedom and the focus that you get from riding a bike. I love the feeling that you put your helmet on, and there's so much more, like I say, focus and concentration that you need when you ride a bike compared to driving a car. I mean, gosh, my car gets used as a cafe and a wardrobe and a DJ set. It's like it's all those things. Whereas you don't have that on a bike. You have to concentrate on what you're doing, on the controls, on the road ahead. And I love that. Like, I've really used it as a sort of mental well-being exercise. If I'm having a bit of a down day or something's stressing me out, I go for a ride and it takes my mind off whatever was stressing me out, because I have to concentrate on what I'm doing. And there's just such uh, an exhilarating feeling when you just twist your wrist, and that sensation of acceleration, and the being anonymous when you put your helmet on as well, and just the feeling of being a Power Ranger, like when you put your full leathers on, there's no feeling like it. Like, I can't recommend it enough.
It's funny you say that, Grace. We were going to ask you about that because the amount of guests we have who say exactly that. It's not just a mode of transport. It's my best friend. It's my me time when I can put the helmet on, where I can sing to myself, where I can just be at one with the bike. And as you said so well, you're having to concentrate on everything you're doing. Nothing else matters. And for me, it's kind of almost a hypnotic state when you're biking, because it's just you and the bike and you have to be aware of everything around you. And it's an amazing escapism, isn't it? I mean, for someone who doesn't ride a bike, they won't get it. But it's not just from getting from A to B. It's getting from A to B and feeling a different person when you arrive at B.
Yeah, yeah. I like some of the words that you said there. Yeah, it is a bit of an escapism. And yeah, you do become, like you say, in a hypnotic state. You sort of, you, I, I don't know if other bikers have this, but during the winter, I don't ride on the road as much because the roads are gross in England during the winter. But then when the first time comes around that you have the first ride out in spring, I do get that like, oh my gosh, have I forgotten what to do? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know what to do. But as soon as you sit on the bike, it just becomes second nature again, and you know what you're doing. So it shows that your brain sort of activates that hypnotic state, and you just you get along with it and you know what to do. But yeah, it's I like I say, I can't recommend it enough, but not for just the escapism, but I do try and use my bike as a mode of transport. It wasn't possible, like I said, for me as a teacher, because I was just carrying too much cargo all the time. But I do try and go to the gym or go to the shops on it. Like any journeys where I'm not carrying my suitcase around with me, then I try and get on the bike, because it just gives you that adrenaline fix for the day.
The way you both talk about it, and that's what's been a real privilege when we've been doing Full Chat for so long, Ewan, isn't it? Listening to people that are genuinely engaged and passionate about what this actual kind of collective love and communion for bikes that we've all got is. It's amazing to listen to. And that sense of the helmet going on and the anonymity, we're going to come on to that in due course. But I'm intrigued. You've already chucked words out like Honda and Triumph. Grace, does that then mean you've got a stable full of bikes with those particular manufacturers? What have you got at the moment, and what have you been on in the past?
I wish I wish I had more in my garage. There is only one bike in my garage at the moment that I own. I'm very fortunate that I can borrow a few bikes from manufacturers and use them for a few weeks, a few months throughout the year. But then that does delay me buying my own other bike, more comfortable bike, shall I say. But I love that I can hop off on and off different things. But my bike that I own is an Aprilia. So I have an RRV 450. So they're quite a niche bike. It's a sports bike, and it was purpose built as a race bike. So actually, when I mentioned that my brothers raced for a championship called Thundersport, they actually ran a one make series for these Aprilia RRV 450s. And so I watched my brothers race those bikes for a few years, and again, because I was sort of tinkering with them as well, and lock wiring different things and changing the wheels, I kind of sort of got used to that bike and sort of learned how it worked a little bit. So I kind of grew to love it, and because they were a purpose built race bike, they were light, they were slim, they were agile. And for me, as someone who's 5 foot, whenever I sat on it, or my brother would let me have a go, I really got on with it really well, and I fell in love with it, and I wanted one myself, not to race, but just because I enjoyed riding it. And funnily enough, all of the bikes that got made for this one make series came straight from Aprilia to the developer, where they would change a few things and then it would go out on track. So it was a purpose built track bike. However, there was one in the pack of about 50 that were made, that for some reason went from Aprilia to a shop floor. So it ended up getting a V5 and a logbook, and then went to the developer and was raced. So that became the only road legal RRV 450, because it was capable of having a number plate to be put on it. And that was the bike that I ended up buying. So I like, it's so cool to say that I have the only road legal one, because they were all purpose built for the track. So
I don't want to put a downer on your bike, but because it is so rare, no, what happens if anything? How do you get spares for it, and how do people work on it if it's such a rare bike? Because my first bike was an Aprilia, but it wasn't a one of one.
Yeah, well, that is the thing. So for the past few years, I have ridden it on track. And to be honest, although it can go on the road, I mainly ride it on track because of that reason, that it is track focused. It doesn't have a lock, it doesn't have lights, so you can only really ride it in certain places on the road. To which I do, but as long as I'm going somewhere where I'm going to be with it all the time, and I love that it gets heads turned to it. Like, people are a bit like, oh, what is it? Like, they don't really know what it is, but it looks really sporty. Like, I like the attention that it gets. But like you say, when you own something that's niche or that's quite custom, yeah, it does become your baby and you're very protective of it. But having grown up in the Thundersport paddock and getting a few contacts, I do have a means of getting some spares. But like anything like that, eventually they'll phase out, or that there's only particular people that know how to work on them and things. So,
A
but what does
bit
that
like me and you, Pruts. A bit like us at our old age. It's only a matter of time before we're phased out. For younger models. The younger models, only a few people know how we work.
Right, hang on, just to keep this vaguely professional for a second, I'm going to do a quick bit of mid-show housekeeping, Grace. If you haven't already, this is not necessarily aimed at you. Please press subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss an episode, or press the follow button on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Miss Webb, carry on.
Well, on the back of that, does that mean then, because something's a bit older or a bit niche, does that mean you don't use it? In my opinion, no. It's there to be
use it.
Thank you, Grace.
Used and ridden.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, and I just hope for the best every time I do.
Yeah, let's hope for that Italian reliability. Anyway, obviously with your job as well, Grace, you get to I've no doubt drive some cool cars and stuff as well. What is it for you if you had the decision and it was a sunny day? Let's just say your Aprilia was all good and it's a sunny day. You had a nice car in the driveway and a nice motorbike. What would make you choose that bike for someone who isn't into bikes, or would you choose a car? I mean, in terms of if you could choose anything between bike and car on an ideal road, ideal situation, great weather, would it always be the bike?
I was going to say it depends where you are and what the weather's like, but if it is an ideal road, an ideal condition, yeah, it's got to be the bike, isn't it?
We think so. Yeah,
I think so. Again, for that, what we spoke about earlier, the focus and the harmony that you get when you ride a bike. To me, I'd pick that. I still very much appreciate the technology and engineering that goes into cars, but my true love is for bikes, so I'd definitely pick that.
Do you think, Grace, given what you've done telly-wise and moving into the broadcasting space, that being a biker does help you with that? Because obviously the way you talk is so uplifting, informative, and it really is kind of illuminating, because you can see the passion in what you talk about. And having seen you work, that's something that comes flying through. Does the essence of being a biker and what being a biker is about help when you talk to people in and around, say, a TT?
Yes, I think so. Because, I mean, yeah, being a biker myself, several people in my family are bikers. My dad's an engineer. Both my brothers then went on to be engineers. So I'm kind of exposed and around that kind of chat and the things that are associated with bikes. So I can sort of link things together like that. And I think as well, being a biker myself, then speaking to someone who's about to take on the TT course, although I've not ridden the TT course in anger like they will have, I still have that appreciation of what it's like to swing your leg over a bike, or what it's like to go fast, or what it's like to hit a corner at full lean angle, or things like that. So there are some things that I can associate with myself, and I'd like to think that then I can portray that appreciation. And especially at the TT, like, there is an area of delicacy around the event that you have to be mindful of, that these riders are about to take on one of the greatest things they'll ever do in their life. So you
And risk
have
that
to
life,
be,
aren't they? Yeah.
you have to be respectful of that. And I think
Mm.
it helps that I ride myself too, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think from the punters who watch it and people who talk in the paddock, it's only a matter of time. I'm not sure it happened where people are like, oh, this girl presenter. No. She's good. She knows her stuff. She rides bikes. She's grown up around bikes. And I think it gives you that kudos and that familiarity that the other riders know that, hang on, she's a biker herself. And I think that gives you that immediate respect that people know not only are you a good presenter, but you know the subject matter. And that really matters because bikers can be really fickle and rightly so. They're really protective over their industry.
Yeah. I'd like to think so. So thank you. But also, I like to think that it's credible that, I didn't just ride bikes because this is now what I do. It's like
Mm.
I had this love from when I was a kid and from when I was 16 doing my CBT. Like, I love bikes just as much as them. It's just that they made the decision to go and ride the TT course, and I've made the decision to bring the magic of the TT course to the world through TT Plus. So it's I want to share the passion just as much as they do.
Here you go then, Grace. You talked of the word magic. I'm going to give you your magic scenario of your dream garage. Money is no object. You've obviously seen and been around bikes all your life. What would be your choice? I'm going to give you three bikes. If you could have a 3-bike garage, you can talk about comfort if you want. You can talk about sports bike, whatever it would be.
Practicality.
What's your dream garage then? What 3 bikes would you choose?
It's funny because the first bike that came to mind was a sports bike, so it's like can't get
You've
that
got to
out
have
of my
one.
mind. Yeah. Oh gosh, this is really difficult. I
Well,
mean,
one then. Just give me one bike then. One all-rounder. One dream
Apart
bike.
from a sports bike.
No, you
I
can have a
mean,
sports bike.
to me, I think I the bikes I'm thinking of maybe wouldn't necessarily be the most expensive bikes or the it bike of the time or whatever, but I think some people go um along the route of because it's nostalgic, or they remember someone in their family owning one, or it has a memory to them, kind of thing. um so for me, I would probably get a Honda Fireblade.
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I was fortunate enough to be invited on the launch of the new Fireblade last year, and I rode it on track at Portimao in Portugal, and I actually had a pillion lap as part of the day as well with John McGuinness.
Oh.
Oh god, that was just like a holding on for dear life. But it, like, the memory sort of flashes in my head, and I really got on well with that bike as well. When things just click and it feels right. And my mum also owned one back in the day, as well. So it's like the Fireblade for me has, a lot of memories attached to it. So it's just iconic. You say the word Fireblade to someone that doesn't ride bikes and they know what it is. And so I think it is just an iconic bike that's a staple you would have to have in your garage.
I had props and Grace. I had one for a while, and I had to give it back because honestly, it was so quick, and I'm a bit of an idiot. But what I did remember, low down, not a lot. Then suddenly, the noise, it would open up, and I used to drive around Southampton, and I literally, I luckily had one for about 6 months, and I probably only rode it 5 or 6 times because I kept frightening myself. I mean, the modern day sports bike will far outweigh my capability all day long. And it's just amazing. You get people in cars thinking, oh yeah, bikes are quite quick, aren't they? People don't realise how quick they're missiles, Fireblades. It's an absolute weapon. I loved it.
That's you riding it, Ewan. But then
Yeah, I know.
Just go, but no, I mean, but in the sense of what that comparison is. So it's fascinating to hear Grace say on the back of John McGuinness's bike, because you're literally there with a genius that knows. We talk. I mean, as lay people, being able to ride around on a motorway, I'm happy enough with that. But to be able to be on the back of something where a fella's truly, or the rider's truly at one with the bike. Well, what was that like? Because, like you say, that ability to process information. Because I read an interview with John many, many moons ago when he talked about people asking him, "Oh, he got sick of the fact people going, oh, you must be mental, you going on a bike." He's, yeah, very funny. Yeah, you must be crazy. Yep, I get what you're saying, but it's problem solving in a split second rate, and that where genius is absolutely right, isn't it? To be sat on the bike with him.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. On that day where we were offered a Pillion lap, there was plenty of people that turned it down and didn't want to go on the back with him. So I don't know what that makes me, because I was like, yeah, I'll do. But again, I don't know if that's, years of watching him ride at the TT, and I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, yeah, all my trust is in him. But for me as well, I had ridden around Portimao several times before going on the back with him, and to me, for me to learn how to get quicker or better or smoother on the bike, actually being on the back with him, we went round some corners and I thought, right, I can go a lot faster around here because John's doing that with two up. Like,
Yeah.
so it almost let me see what was possible. So I found that really helpful for me to learn to go on the back with him. But then don't get me wrong, there were times where we just went down the start finish straight and my arms were shaking. I mean, there was nothing to hold on to other than his waist. So, I mean, bless him, it's John McGuinness with a set of leathers on. So my arms were like really trying to hold on because just the force is pushing you back. My arms are shaking, and like they're slowly slipping. I'm like, we must be at the end of the straight now. But and he's like, he wheelies as he comes onto the start finish, and one corner, like the rear was sliding out, but it was just I was so elated and it was speechless after it, because John, I remember John, as we pulled into the pits, he was like, bloody hell, did you feel the rear wheel slip out then? And I was like, yeah, I did, yeah.
I'm so over it.
yeah, he was so like cool about it all, and I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it's a memory that I've got now, and yes, such a good time. Yeah.
Total trust in your life in someone's hands, isn't it? You're putting your life in someone's hands, but he's got the skills to back it up. And it's just like I said earlier, it's amazing what these bikes can do in the right capability. It's just frightening. Technology is amazing.
Our final question, Ewan, isn't it, on Full Chat, is always about a fantasy ride. I mean, that one that was reality sounds pretty decent, but maybe it's a slight, in all senses of the definition, a gear change when we ask you this, Grace, because it's like we want the idyllic mental image of you riding off into the sunset for all the listeners that I've no doubt have enjoyed every single thing that you've said today. So we need the destination of where you're going on this bike ride, who you're going to be with, what are you riding, and potentially what music you might be listening to.
Okay. So, well, I'd probably pick somewhere that I've not been before. To tick a new thing off. Something that I would really like to do is the whole Route 66 thing in America. So if you're going to do that, it'd have to be on a Harley, probably. And I would go with my dad. We've done a few road trips together, and seeing how much he enjoys it means that I enjoy it so much. We get along so well. So I do Route 66 on a Harley with my dad. And one of my favorite films is Cars, the Pixar film.
Yeah. Lovely film.
The soundtrack to that film is incredible. So that would probably be the music, the whole like Chuck Berry, Rascal Flatts sort of American vibe. So that's something that I've never done, but I would love to tick off. So that'd be sort of the ultimate bike ride, I think.
That's one of the nicest. We've had some really creative, brilliant answers. But I love the fact you're with your dad because you know it brings him joy to be with you, spending time on a bike. I just think that's absolutely lovely. You know, you're on a nice, relaxed route on a Harley, a comfortable bike with your dad, with a brilliant soundtrack. That's made me smile.
Look at Ewan's face. It's made you feel warm inside, hasn't
and
it?
can I just say, like, how on earth have we got to the end of this episode where one, you've not rinsed me for me cardigan?
That was my next protocol.
But listen, I've got children's headphones on. I'd like to be professional like Prutton and have my in-ears, but I just thought, no, do you know, I'm going to keep it. No, the truth is I couldn't find my headphones and I borrowed my son's headphones. But thank you for not rinsing me, both of you.
The question I was going to ask Grace at the very end, after the fantasy ride, was whether you and Thomas had a big head and small earphones, or whether it was just a perspective of where his camera is. And also, Grace, if any of us are wondering where our grandma's cardigan is, it's down in Southampton on the shoulders of you and Thomas.
There you go.
Well,
Thanks very much.
I think you're rocking it. The bold green
Thanks,
with
Grace.
the leopard print cardigan. I think it's you're pulling it off, Ewan.
Right, so when you get to my age, Grace, you've got to try and be down with the Utes and all that. You know, that's what they say down here. Down with the Utes. Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to hold on for dear life.
You are, and just to save us all here, we're going to wrap up. Sadly, unfortunately, that is about it for this week's Full Chat, powered by Bikesure, as the UK's largest independent motorcycle insurance broker. Bikesure will tailor a quote to your exact needs and help save you money on your annual bike, scooter, or moped insurance, and so much more.
Thank you so much to our wonderful guest, Grace. You've been absolutely delightful. Honestly, your knowledge has been brilliant, and your fantasy ride for me is going to stick with me all day and make me smile. So thank you for being an awesome guest.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
You've been an absolute pleasure, Grace. Don't forget to press the subscribe button on YouTube so that you never miss an episode or miss Ewan's gear, or press the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Thank you so much for listening, and I guarantee next episode I'll be finding another grandmother's cardigan and another one of my children's headphones will be on my head right here. Until next time, goodbye.